I want to be more intimate with you, Lord.
The average lifespan for a victim of trafficking is 7 years past the date of their first transaction.
We know that they are abused, violated between 8 and 10 times a night, expected to bring home $1,000 a night to their perpetrator.
Experts in the United States say that there are less than 50 beds for victims of sex trafficking.
There are so many obstacles around freedom for the girls, but yet God is so much greater than anything they've been through, and we have seen that time and time again.
Welcome to Pure Passion. My name is Stacia Freeman. Today, we have a mother and son who reach out to females who've suffered sexual abuse, including those who have been victims of sex trafficking. Their ministry is called Wellspring Living, and it has 2 locations in the Atlanta area. One help center is designed for young girls and the other for adult women. This is a beautifully designed program that is so highly regarded that they are regularly asked to be advisors for new programs in various parts of the world. Let's take a look at what Mary Frances and her son Paul have been doing.
Nicole didn't know that she was a product of rape. When she was 13 years old, she was trafficked in multiple states and was required to make $1,000 a day.
Growing up, Nicole's mom taught her not to value education. When she came to us, she couldn't write in complete sentences, and she was failing every class.
Nicole would always run away. She would ignore staff, and she was afraid of getting help.
Now that God is healing Nicole, she is experiencing true freedom.
She's working towards finishing her high school diploma while achieving college credits.
We know that they are abused, violated between 8 and 10 times a night, expected to bring home $1,000 a night to their perpetrator. It's intolerable what we have seen happen to the girls that we serve.
When a young girl is abused sexually, it can completely halt her development, both emotionally, mentally, sometimes physically. And so what will happen is you will have a girl who continues to age, and maybe she'll be 13, 14, 15 years old, or maybe she'll be in her 20s, but she's still thinking at the age where she was first abused. And so in cases, you have girls that have the privileges of a 16-year-old, maybe they're out with their friends, but they still have the thinking capacity and the learning abilities of an 8 or 9-year-old. Now, if you gave an 8 or 9-year-old the privileges of a 16-year-old to go out and do whatever, they're not going to have that decision-making skills to be able to know what is wise and what is not wise. And so you have a lot of girls that are being exploited because they don't know better, because they were abused at a young age. When there's trauma, that happens actually on the right side of the brain. However, talking happens only to the left side of the brain. So in order to engage those types of traumas, talking is not the only way to be able to do it. You can't just talk to these girls and get the type of results that you're going to need. You need creative solutions that are going to help get into that right side of the brain. That's why we engage our girls in a pet therapy program where we bring in dogs or we take them to go work with horses. We do art therapy with the girls. We do music therapy. And these are the type of therapies that are going to help engage the part of the brain where the trauma has actually taken place, so that way they can begin to develop again.
We've seen girls who come to us and they hadn't been in school, and one of the things that we offer them is a personalized education plan where they come in and it's almost like a homeschool. We have 2 master level teachers and academic mentors that we train that are volunteers, and they set their own pace. And it's amazing how quickly they catch on. They're smart girls. They've had to be smart. They've had to be entrepreneurial just to live in the situation that they've been in. And when you put it in a situation where they can be doing good for themselves, they just fly. And we're seeing girls gain credits 3 times faster than if they were in traditional schools. It's been a beautiful journey of watching girls complete high school and even go on to college and technical school. While you are serving them, with God's love and God's care and excellence, He just does amazing things.
Our clinical director for our girls program is one of the most brilliant people that you'll ever meet. She works so closely to create a personalized program for every single girl. She's being sought by programs all over the world just to consult with them. Then our program director, our clinical director for our women's program is equally as talented in being able to work specifically with women, with different emotional issues. You're talking about all these different presenting issues. The women that come into our program, they may have addiction problems, they may have eating disorders, they may be depressed, they may have a whole range of issues, they may have multiple issues. Those are called presenting issues. It's our core belief that if you treat a presenting issue, then the core issue has not been dealt with. So the woman is going to disengage from whatever presenting issue she's presenting at the time and go to another presenting issue. And you're not going to find true healing or true change. And so our program is structured so that way we focus on that core root issue of that childhood sexual abuse or those traumatic experiences during trafficking. So that way these girls and women can find healing in their soul. So that way there is no presenting issue anymore because there is no core issue.
As much as you want to preach the gospel to them, they're really not that open to it at the beginning. So the best way you do it is the way you love and serve them. But it's amazing how, as they have been in this environment of love, they begin to seek God, and we see them move toward Him while we get to serve them. It's been a journey of ups and downs, many tears, and and sometimes many failures, because you're wanting so much, and there are so many obstacles around freedom for the girls, but yet God is so much greater than anything they've been through, and we have seen that time and time again.
Our mindset is that we don't want to use the Bible as punishment for the girls, but at the same time, we see a spiritual element surrounding the girls and women. Just walking into the cottage, you can feel just a presence of peace. And a lot of that is because of the attitudes of our workers there. It's just very easy to see God's love through them.
Felicia is the daughter of her mother's pimp. She grew up in a really unhealthy environment, and at one point she was locked in a shed for 1 week by her perpetrator. When Felicia was 8 years old, she started smoking weed to cope with her issues.
From a young age, Felicia had consistently fallen through the cracks in the public school system. She often had flashbacks in class, which led the teachers to believe that she didn't care about school.
Because of Felicia's pain, she often withdraws from her peers and from staff. And through Felicia's recovery, she's developed a personal relationship with Jesus Christ.
She is now successful in school and even dreams of becoming a nurse technician.
The average lifespan for a victim of trafficking is 7 years past the date of their first transaction. So very few girls that are trafficked starting at 12 and 13 will wind up being old enough to be in our women's program, because most of them will die. For victims of human trafficking, the top 2 causes of death are HIV or AIDS and violence and homicide.
Most of the girls are trafficked online right now. We know that there's some street activity that happens around strip clubs. Within a 5-mile radius, there's the trafficking of minors happening. We also know that there are escort services that kind of shadily do it if they call in. But Craigslist is no longer a source, but there are other online sources that are advertising young girls for sale. We know that many predators are vicious about getting on sites where they know girls are. Facebook, MySpace, even gaming, and pretending to be someone their age, but then when it comes down to it, of course they're older, but they groom them even over the internet to believe that they're beautiful and they're going to help them, and they set up a meeting, and then there's the whole capture piece that happens. So online, sometimes escort service, and very little right now in street activity.
Some experts in the United States say that there are less than 50 beds for victims of sex trafficking to take on that recovery process. See, in lieu of jail, recovery is such a better avenue. In jail, you have girls that have been victims of highly sexualized crimes. You know, they become very violent very quickly, and when you're putting them in a surrounding, an environment with other children that have had a lot of issues, they can learn a lot of really bad habits really quickly. And so a better place for them to receive their treatment is in these home-like shelters that Wellspring has. Now, like I said, there are less than 50 beds in the country. We have 14 of them, so that makes us the largest provider of care to victims of sex trafficking in the country.
It's an interesting thing that happened back a couple months ago. We had Adventures in Missions came and did the world tour, and they had been in Cambodia, they had been in India, they had been in Thailand, and they came to work with us. And one afternoon, they went and prayed in the areas where we know it's going on, and suddenly they realized that as bad as they thought it was in Thailand and India, that it was just as bad right here in their own hometown.
We want to make sure that there are more beds out there. So a couple of things that we've done is we've worked to try to train other programs. We have programs in Texas, programs in Pennsylvania that we've helped train. We've helped train programs in Romania and Australia, all over the world. We've done trainings for the United Nations. We've done trainings for the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, for the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, for the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. What we can do is we can lend our knowledge, our expertise of what we've been doing for the last 3 years and for the past 10 years to help this issue on a broader scale, nationwide or around the world.
The girls come to us through an agency that the state of Georgia has created called the Georgia Care Connection, and they receive the referrals from all the child care agencies, such as Department of Human Services for Children and Families, from Department of Juvenile Justice. Parents are sometimes referring their children. We know that because there's mandatory reporting that now the school guidance counselors and even medical, anyone that has anything to do with children are to report it, and they report it to this particular agency, and then they refer them into our program. The care of the girls is paid for residentially by the state. The part that we play, because we're in a partnership with a fully licensed child care facility, that way they do the residential care and they hold the license. Our part is to come in and do the therapeutic and the academic part and a plan of care once they leave that facility. And so the child care agency gets state funding, but we're totally privately funded. Every time we get a referral from the state agency, our clinical director meets with them with a treatment team just to make sure this is the best placement for them. And when she finds that that's the best placement, then we put them into an opportunity for them to gradually engage in the cottage. And so the way it works is the first 30 days they're in like an orientation period, and where they come in and they're not actually happy to see you, because most of the girls come from jail and they've been so abused and manipulated that they don't trust anyone. And so those first 30 days, we're really seeking to make them feel safe, to be able to build trust. And so in that process of doing those things, we see them open up, begin to start wanting to get back into school, and then they open up and the walls begin to fall down so that they can really deal with the woundedness that's happened in their lives, not just through the trafficking, but it goes way back into some family issues that you have to dig real deep to help them walk through.
Our women come to us voluntarily. They come to us because they've reached rock bottom and they want to change. Whereas our girls are ordered there by a judge, a social worker, or maybe someone else like a probation officer. Both of our programs are in separate locations. One location is on the north side of Atlanta, one's on the south side of Atlanta. A unique thing about having both of our programs under the same umbrella of Wellspring is that we have women who are over 18 and we have women who are under 18 that are in different stages of their recovery. And many times we can get those women and girls together for dinner, and the girls can see these women who are older than them and see that there is hope, that you know, if you follow what is taught, that you can have recovery, that you can be whole again. And our women can have perspective on the girls and see, wow, these girls were, you know, maybe like I was when I was that age, or maybe even I didn't even have it that bad when I was their age. Whatever the case may be, we can provide perspective and encouragement for both parties by bringing them together. And that's a really unique part about our organization.
Ashley found her father murdered at the age of 3. When she was a teenager, she was locked in an apartment for 3 months and forced to have sex for money. To end the pain, Ashley tried to hang herself with a belt.
Because of multiple suspensions, Ashley had attended 4 different middle schools. She had given up hopes of ever succeeding in school.
Ashley has problems connecting with people. One moment she loves me, the next moment she hates me. She needs constant supervision from staff because she'll often threaten to hurt her peers.
Now Ashley believes that she is valued and worth loving.
She really wants her future to be what God wants it to be.
When girls come into the program, the first thing that happens, as I mentioned earlier, is that they go through like an orientation phase where they get to like make their room for them. It's a beautiful room where they are able to live. Every girl has their own room and their own bathroom. One of the core beliefs that we have is that the environment that we set for the girls has to reveal that we believe their girls are worth. And so their rooms were actually decorated by interior designers and made absolutely gorgeous. And so they get a bulletin board and they kind of make it their own little place. The second thing we do is we ask them things about themselves, like, so what's your favorite color? What's your favorite meal? What's your favorite this? So they begin to kind of talk about themselves. That's another way of helping them open up. During those first 30 days, we're finding where their credits are, here, there, and everywhere, and we're combining all of that. We are working with a partnership with a non-traditional, fully accredited high school, so that everything they do with us goes toward their high school credit. Pull that together and then sit down with the girl and with her family, and we create a plan of how she's going to get back on grade level or finish high school if possible. And so all of those things happen at the beginning. And then the girls go through what was called a phase system. What we've discovered, and it really works with all people, you have to have a motivation to stick at something that's not easy. And so with the women, we had to find, well, what's the thing that's going to motivate them? You just add privileges, you add things to encourage them to stay on the journey. And so with the girls, that same thing, we want to encourage them and spur them on to love and good deeds. And so the phases, the more they check off certain things and the way they respond, they get more privileges. And so as they go through their phases, then they move toward the time when they're ready to transition out. And this includes, going on field trips. It includes having passes to go home or to that safe family member over the weekend, helping to normalize them. That's one of the things you're wanting to do. Let them become a normal teenage girl. So while they're with us, they're learning and growing academically in their day-to-day activities. They have group sessions every day on different things, healthy sexuality, overcoming any kind of addictions, because most of them have been addicted because their perpetrator has drugged them during that time to make them do more business for them. We have relationship type classes and even a class on how to make good decisions. They have 2 individualized sessions a week with our therapist. One is focused on really dealing with the pain, and we do it through trauma-focused therapy and also through therapy called EMDR, eye movement. It's basically a distraction so that you can go down deep to the pain, but realize that where you felt you were helpless, there is a strength to help you go forward. And of course, that strength is in God. And then one of the sessions is really planning for the future. You look back to the wound, but we always want to point you toward a good future. And so those are the academic and therapeutic things that are going on. But if you think about it, these girls have not had any normalcy as being a teenage girl. And so a lot of things that you learn from a mom, they haven't had the opportunity to learn. And so we actually have volunteers that come in and teach life skill classes or actually just interest classes. So we'll have a volunteer that may come in and teach cooking or scrapbooking or sewing and knitting and career development, all of those kinds of things. And every volunteer has to go through strict training and a background check, and they commit to doing this for 6 weeks straight. Consistency is so important in recovery, and we believe that true recovery is through relationship. And if you think about it, that's what it is with us. It's through our relationship of recovery with the Lord Jesus Christ that we are saved. And so if we're ambassadors of Christ, then as we work with those who are in deep woundedness, we have to build on relationship. It's not about preaching down, it's about walking beside.
When our girls are going through our program, we use education to engage with them, because at first when they come in, they're very standoffish and they don't want to participate in the program. So we give them a personalized education program, and we try to help them gain high school credits at a quick speed, so that way they can get, first of all, a self-esteem boost to see that they can be successful in academics. But second of all, what we can do is we can show them that our program works, and they should trust us, that they can see that we're on their side. And what happens is a girl will come in the program, and we'll work really hard to develop that first high school credit. And when the girl earns that first high school credit, it's like a light switch flips on for the girl, and she wants to engage in every part of it, both therapeutically and academically. And so we had an example of a girl that came into our program. She had dropped out after 9th grade, and so she had only finished 1 year of high school, but yet she was 17 years old. She was going to, she was going to be 18 shortly. And she worked very hard. We helped her set goals. We put goals in front of her, and she actually set her own goals for a lot of this. And through a lot of hard work, she earned credits at 3 times the rate of a traditional student. And in 9 months, she completed 3 years of high school and graduated from high school. And actually last fall, she started college here in the state of Georgia. She has dreams, she has aspirations, and she is going to be able to realize those. Whereas only a few years ago, she was sitting in jail. And we like to say that in a year, she went from a jail cell to a dorm room. And how life has changed so much for her. And whereas she had no future, and so therefore it was so easy for her to fall back into old ways or to be manipulated again, now she has a future and she can think for herself, and she wants to make herself a productive citizen.
Diane Langberg is a renowned expert on what happens to girls who have suffered childhood sexual abuse and exploitation. And one of the illustrations I heard her share one time when she actually came and did an event for us was, she said, it's like taking a beautiful china cup and throwing it on the concrete. Every part of her life shatters. They are physically, of course, hurt. The very first girl we were able to serve, she was 21 years old, but her abuse happened when she was 5. She'll never be able to have children. Psychologically, there's a paranoia that happens because they're afraid of everybody, that everybody's going to take advantage of them. Relationally, how can they trust anyone when 97% of the childhood sexual abuse happens among family or friend? The very people that were supposed to be protecting them are the ones that actually harmed them. So relationally, it's hard for them to have relationships. And spiritually, how can they trust a God they don't see? when all this has happened with the people they're supposed to be able to trust. And many times the question is, where was God in this? And really, the only way we can answer that question is to continue to love them and build trust in our relationship with them knowing that we know God and we serve God and that He is going to love them through us. It takes time. I mean, we can say it all we want to, but really and truly, the girls have to see it. I'll never forget, there was one girl that came into the program, and she was maybe 14 years old. And she came in very angry, very belligerent. She knew that we had in our hearts God, but she didn't want to hear it from us. And with the girls, we have to be extremely cautious. We really only have a spiritual discovery class because they need to ask us the question, because if we begin to tell them about God and try to manipulate them to believe like we do, we're no better than the pimps. So again, we don't say anything, we don't push it. It's their choice if they want to come to that class, but we try to model it in the way we love and care for them. Well, this girl was very, very upset about being in the cottage, about being she wanted to be back on the street. She just didn't want to be there at all. And she told us every day, I don't believe in God. There is no God. I don't believe in God. Well, one of the coping skills when things get tough for young girls is running away. I mean, that's kind of their MO per se. And so this girl decided she didn't want to be there anymore, bolted down the door, started running into the woods behind the facility where we serve the girls. And she was in the woods and things didn't go the way she thought. She realized that something very bad was about to happen. And so in the dark night in the woods, the police were looking, and she said a little prayer. She said, God, if you were there, get me to the place I need to be. Within minutes, the police came and was able to take her back to the cottage. That's what made her believe. It's almost as if God has to show Himself to them. But what we want to do is set an environment so God can show up, because He's going to be the one that convinces them. There's no words that's going to happen from our mouth. There's no action that we can take. It has to be God that draws them to Him, just like it is for us. I mean, our parents can tell us all day long, but we have to choose God for ourselves. And I think that's the beautiful thing, that God is so able to do that. One of the women that we served years ago told a person that was interviewing her, well, you know, how do you justify the fact, where was God when all this was happening to you? And she said, my God is big enough to know that even though this happened, He's big enough to redeem me anyway. And I think that's the message we as believers have got to know, is that God is big enough. And we don't have to answer every question. We just have to have faith for the girls until they can have it for themselves.
I think you'll agree that Wellspring Living in Atlanta is a very well thought out program, a model that could be reproduced all over this country. If you know of a girl or woman in the Atlanta area who could use their help, please don't hesitate to contact them at wellspringliving.org. Why not support them financially and in prayer as well? And if you don't have a ministry like this in your area, why not contact them to see what might be possible for those who have been abused in your city? Remember, until Jesus Christ physically returns to end all suffering and abuse, you and I will be the only Jesus that people see. I'm Stacia Freeman for Pure Passion.